Welcome to another Unwinding with Fiber and Fabric, and welcome to the first of my Countdown to Christmas 2021 videos. Over the next few weeks, I hope to be able to inspire you with some of the things that I have made or family members have made over these last years. In some cases, items that are much older than I am. I hope that they will inspire you to get crafting, get creating, and help spread the joy of giving. In my home, we have developed a tradition of giving gifts that are homemade, handmade. That is not to say that we do not do a lot of shopping. That is not to say that there are not many purchased gifts under our tree over the years, every year, some years more than others. But years ago, when I was a small child, I became intrigued by the notion of homemade gifts. My brothers did not share my desire to do homemade gifts. They really actually conveyed to me their displeasure over the notion of only having homemade gifts. But when I was I think it started when I was in college. When in high school, I started making Christmas gifts. Back then, you could have handmade gifts go to things like Toys for Tots. And so I started making handmade gifts that could be donated at Christmas time. And in college, I was able to make gifts for a few friends that were homemade. It's amazing, even back then, when the desire to make something handmade is there, you will find a way, even if you're not set up with sewing machine or all of the craft supplies we now have today. And with every year that progressed past college, I have continued trying to have some homemade gifts. In the early years when I was first married, we like many young couples, we were very, very limited in our Christmas budget. I know our first Christmas together was so tight that my mother-in-law, she went out and bought a bunch of the household things that we needed, like toilet paper and paper towels. And she wrapped those up for us to have to unwrap at Christmas. And there was a lot of joy that Christmas. There was a lot of laughter. I was so grateful for every present we unwrapped. It did not matter what the item was. If it was needed, it was with great gratitude that I received it. And it's so funny because with the toilet paper shortage of 2020, I started thinking about our Christmas presents all those years ago, and I had to chuckle because while people joked about giving toilet paper for Christmas, I had actually received toilet paper. And in the machine embroidery community, we'll know that there's a kind of a gag gift, white elephant type gift that we now give. That's embroidered toilet paper rolls. And yes, I have done a few of those. My son loves them. They make great office party gag gifts. And so with every year, I've tried to come up with something new that I'm creating, something new that I'm giving to family and friends. In the early years, I kept a list of what I gave everybody one Christmas during the Christmas, so that the following year I'd give them a different handmade gifts and I wouldn't have duplicates. With every year that I've crafted, I have become more skilled. With every year that I've crafted, I've tried to learn something new, experiment with a new type of item. It's just with some having much greater enjoyment and success than others. And so over the years, I have been able to accumulate quite an arrangement of Christmas decor items. I haven't limited myself to just the crafts that I make of decorations. There were Christmases in which I made jams and jellies, and I gave jams and jellies. In fact, my son learned to make jam and jelly when he was, about, say, 10, 11, somewhere in there, and he started taking on the tradition of making Christmas jams and jellies, Christmas breads that we would give to friends and family alike. So this is a tradition that we have had in our household. Over the years, we've experienced a lot of different shifts, a lot of fluidity in the traditions that we have. But the one constant right from the very beginning with my husband and I is that we try to have a little bit of handmade go into our Christmas. Sometimes for budgetary reasons, and sometimes just for the complete enjoyment. So over these next days, I will have, probably shorter than this video, short videos of the different projects, ideas. I've tried to group things together in categories. Some of the items take a little bit longer, a little more time consuming, and other items can be done in just a quick craft session. So there will be some variety. There will be a variety of different techniques and crafts. I'll have knitting and crochet. There will be woodworking, both complicated as far as technology goes, and some, like the very first wood ornament that went on our tree, made with balsa wood and X-Acto knives by my husband the first year. It's amazing what you can do with modeling kits from the 80s if you have enough of a desire. And I will be showing that ornament as well as others as we go through these days of countdown. But today what I wanted to do is I wanted to talk to you about why I'm doing this, share with you the traditions that we've had in making the handmade gifts, and go over quickly my supply cabinet list, things I keep on hand so that when the need to make a decoration, an ornament at the last minute arises, I can do that. I love when the opportunity arises that we can have young people or youngish people come over to our home and decorate cookies or make ornaments to share in these traditions. I started collecting ornaments when I was in college because some dear friends of mine told me how when they were young and first married, and their budget was very, very tight at Christmas, they decided upon buying for each other an ornament. Year after year, they continued this tradition, and others found out about their tradition and started purchasing ornaments for them as well. By the time I knew them, they had so many ornaments that they actually would go through and do theme trees each year. They would decide one year, this is the type of thing, woodland creatures or glass baubles, and they could decorate their entire tree just with a portion of the ornaments that they've collected. I thought that was such a wonderful, wonderful tradition that I started collecting ornaments at that time. My husband and I started collecting ornaments when we first got together. First, we made some, then we bought some, and then we've learned to make more. When the kids became a little bit older, we finally decided that every year we would make each other ornaments. But we would make one for each of us. It doesn't take long to fill a tree when you're making 16 ornaments to go on the tree every year. We had a very large tree. The first Christmas in our home in Colorado, after the kids were born, and we first moved into, I think it was 1999, we moved into our first real home. And my husband, who was in the military, was on a short deployment. I think he was actually at school training at the time. And so it was me and the two kids. My daughter was still in diapers. I believe my son had just left diapers behind. And we had the task of going and buying an artificial Christmas tree. I didn't want to deal with live Christmas trees because I like to have a Christmas tree up through the whole of the December time period. And so I wanted an artificial Christmas tree. And so with my husband not there to help me, I bundled up the kids, drove the hour into town, and went Christmas tree shopping. And I knew I wanted a large tree. I knew I wanted a tall tree. We had very high ceilings in our house. Or I should say, we had a open peak ceiling in our house. So there were the area I was going to put the Christmas tree, it had a high ceiling. So I knew we could put a tall Christmas tree in. But I wanted to make sure it was a wide Christmas tree because I love wide and full Christmas trees. And I knew we were collecting ornaments and eventually would need the space. So my children and I, in tow, we went to one of the many big box stores and started looking for Christmas trees. And what didn't occur to me at the time was that I would have to get this very large box into my truck, drive home with it, and get it into the house and decorate it all on my own because the kids were too little at the time. Fortunately, a worker in the store was able to help carry the box out to my vehicle. But when I got home, I realized, this is going to be interesting. So I waited until the kids went to bed, and then I assembled the tree, and I started putting the 800 plus lights on the tree. Now, this was in the days in which I still worked full-time, and I had the 2 little kids, and my husband was out of town for a couple weeks. So I didn't get much sleep that night, but I had it set up to where we could now decorate the tree when my husband came home. Because I just wanted the tree up and ready and the lights on. The memory of that still brings a huge smile to my face, because I hear a lot of people talk about the difficulty of having Christmas trees and cats. But most of us will know that Christmas trees and 2 little toddlers and cats can create quite the circus. So, from the very beginning of my motherhood and cat combined life, I have learned that you put ornaments on the bottom half of the tree that you don't worry about being broken. And you put the ornaments that you worry about being broken towards the top of the tree. And then you make sure you don't have a cat that tries to scale the inside of the tree. Which fortunately I have not had one of those. So that's how we started out our Christmases. That's how we started out with the tree that I will be showing you, which probably actually is in the beginning of this opening of this video. That's how that tree started. That's how our tradition of collecting ornaments started. And over the years, we have cooked, we have sewn, we have crafted, we've hot glued, we've sequined, we've glittered, and we have baked. And we've done all of these things in order to make gifts for our friends and our family. In the years in which there were very lean times, these skills, these abilities, most importantly the inspiration to do these items, really saved our Christmases. Not simply because we had gifts to give, but in the process of making the gifts, we shared time with each other. We talked about family, we talked about tradition, we told stories. My kids came to understand and know the people, the family members of their ancestry through the skills we taught them, through the memories we shared. That tradition is what we've kept. Even if we're around the world, we're in different locations, different family situations that will evolve in the future. That's the tradition we've installed. It's not about whether or not we get around the table to eat, not about whether or not we're in the same country. It's about sharing those memories as we do the run up to Christmas. We used to laugh about how Christmas Day was my day off. The week of Christmas Day to New Year's was my day off, my days off. Because during that week, I wasn't working on Christmas presents for family and friends. Whereas once January 1st came, I started thinking again, what would I do the upcoming year? People ask, how do you have enough time? Well, when you start on January 2nd with your Christmas gifts for your family for the upcoming year, there is always time. It just takes a little more discipline than I think most of us have, and it takes not getting burned out. And Christmas can sometimes cause us to burn out. So I'm hoping to share with you over these upcoming days different types of crafting, different types of techniques that can be done with lots of planning, and some that need very little planning, but just a card table and some friends around it in order to do it. When I get to the clay ornaments we did, I will probably talk about that story. I've had so much joy in my life because I have not only made gifts for others, but I have taught others how to make gifts. And that's the joy I hope to be able to share with you in these upcoming videos. For now, I want to show you, whoops, the music box behind me that just turned on as I bumped it. That is one of the treasures from my youth. That was a music box that was in my grandma's house. This sleigh here, made with plastic canvas, is another one of them. It's a music box as well. It's another one of the treasures from my grandma's house. This one is very fragile. It's made out of paper, and there's still some glitter left on it, and it was always on a side table in my grandma's front room. And it from my earliest memories, it was running in and turning that on whenever we'd go visit her. And then she made this one more towards the end of the 70s, early 80s, I believe. And that one was usually filled with Hershey Kisses and candy canes. So we visited that one quite a bit. But my love of music boxes started with these simple musical ornaments. Simple, that has to be 1960s. It might be earlier, but it's a treasure for me. It reminds me of her house. It reminds me of her. It reminds me of gathering together with my family. But what I was grabbing was this quilt. So this is a grandma's flower garden quilt, and it is made with corduroy. And this was made by my maternal grandfather's mother. And I believe it dates to World War II. Because of the fabrics, because of the colors, and because of the fact that I know when my grandparents were married, and their need at that time for blankets on the bed, that's what this dates back to. This was given to them as a gift. And it is just scraps. It's scraps of corduroy. It's probably clothing that was cut up, clothing projects that were cut up and made into this wonderful, wonderful quilt that my grandmother passed on to me right about the time I was moving away to establish my first home with my husband. So it was from my great-grandmother, her mother-in-law, to my grandmother, and now to me. And when I moved into my home in Colorado, when we had finally managed to get into a home that we owned rather than rented, and I could start getting my stuff out, this came out of the chest, and it became one of my favorite items. Initially, it came out at Christmas time because it was red and green. But when my mother-in-law passed away, we received from her a chair that she loved. She said it was the only chair she could find that she was comfortable in when she was pregnant with my husband. And the only time I got to sit in it before she passed away was when I was pregnant with my children. When she passed away, it was something we had to bring with us to our home. It is in desperate need of refurnishing, but it's hard to give up that old, and it is definitely a polyester fabric. It is so 1960s. It's probably the first furniture she and my father-in-law purchased together. And it has all of the smells associated with 50 plus years of use. But it is still so comfortable and so wonderful to sit in. And it just so happens that it is a green, very similar to some of the greens in this quilt. So while it is many years, a couple decades apart in age from this quilt, the two of the items together just really worked. And so in my home in Colorado, they became a pair, and they stayed out year round. And I so loved this green and red combination that it actually became the inspiration for a lot of the decorations that I have in my home that aren't Christmas in their orientation. Red and green make me happy. It makes me happy to decorate with those colors. I tend to go with burgundies and any shades of red, but it was the inspiration for so many of the Christmas items, the home decor items that I've made over this last 20 years since receiving these items together in the home that I have. So it tends to stay out. In this new house, it hasn't come out as much. It stayed in a chest. Did a little different configuration, little different stuff that's on it, but I do love it. It is warm. It is wonderful. I have a few quilts of this age that are in really good shape, and they inspire me. They inspire me every time I pull them out, every time I snuggle under them, every time I think of them. So I hope it inspires you. Simple remnants, simple cutout shapes. In this case, all hand quilted. I suspect hand pieced because machine sewing, piecing hexagons is hard even today. Although I do know that my great-grandmother had a treadle sewing machine and was making a lot of things with the sewing machine at this time. This is most likely all hand pieced and all hand sewn, and you can feel some of the batting, the wadding, as others call it, has clumped over the years. It has been used, it has been loved, and it continues to be loved. So I wanted to share that with you, and then I wanted to quickly wrap up before we end this video with a list of some of the things I keep on hand so that when the crafting bug hits me, when the inspiration comes, I can quickly get started without necessarily having to place an order online or run out to a store. And I have a little list here, but first I want to talk about one of the newest items to my craft storage, my craft storeroom. My craft pantry. That's it. My craft pantry. Because like a well-stocked pantry in the kitchen, it's good to have a well-stocked craft pantry. And one of the newest items I have is canvas drop cloths that painters use. A few years ago, I think it was about 2 years ago, there was a huge craze that went through the machine embroidery groups where they would go and buy painters' canvas drop cloths. And they were using those to embroider on. Now, partly this happened because you could get those drop cloths for $5 on sale at your local tool and hardware store. Needless to say, the price has gone up a little bit, but it's still very economical to buy these painter drop cloths in comparison to canvas. I will throw out the caveat. When I buy them, I throw them in the washing machine. I wash them through 2 full cycles on high heat, well scrubbed, get them very, very clean, get all the chemicals and all the dust and all of the debris, anything that might be off them right from the beginning. So they'll go through 2 full cycles. That will mean they'll shrink. The wonderful thing with them is because they're made to be drop cloths, they're completely seamed around the edges. In some of them from different big box stores, they had seaming all over. But the really good ones that I found from the cheapest location, they're just big, huge pieces of fabric with edge seamed. So I wash them. I immediately, after washing them, I go through and I snip and tear off all of the seamed edges. Roll the fabric up, and it's ready to go. Over these next days, you will see aprons made from them, pillows made from them, grocery bags made from them, anything that can be made from rough-ish canvas. They're rustic. They are meant to be utility items. But it's amazing how wonderful they look when you put some dye on them in a dye project. So that's the newest thing that I've added to my my craft pantry. If you are someone like a machine embroiderer and you want to use them for machine embroidery, I recommend you use a water-soluble stabilizer topper over the top of them before you do your embroidery. It helps keep the threads on top. But these could be well used for hand embroidery. As you will see in a number of the projects that I show, I have colored on them with crayon and heat set the crayon to them. They're just very versatile. And they can be used as paint drop cloths. When we were painting our house, in fact, when we were painting the room I'm in right now, we used a couple as drop cloths. And when we were done with painting, and the paint had dried, into the washing machine they went, and they ended up in my fabric stash for craft projects. Because it doesn't matter if a grocery bag has paint splotches on it, it still works. So that's one of the newest things to my craft pantry. I also keep felt, acrylic and wool felt, bells, jingle bells, tiny bells, big bells, key rings, basic jewelry supplies, like glass beads and sequins, and all of the little, what are they called? I have it down here. Charms that you can get for charm bracelets. Keep those on hand. I keep E6000 glue. Love that stuff. I have hot glue. I have regular white glue. I keep Mod Podge on hand. I have a selection of glues. My husband has a selection of wood glues that we use. Super glues. A ton of glue. Spray-on adhesive glues. Glues are a good thing. We keep pipe cleaners, or otherwise called Chanel stems. We keep those on hand, in colors, in varieties and sizes. We keep crafting wire. Different gauges of wire, different colors. We keep crafting wire. We keep pom-poms and pom-pom makers and tons of yarn, of course, on hand. We keep ribbons on hand and cardstock. Basic standard office supply cardstock is invaluable. Can get into different colors, but just having a lot of white on hand is great to have. We keep label sheets on hand, and we also now keep, it's a clear self-adhesive cover that goes on top of labels and cardstock in order to make our own stickers. We keep glue sticks and glue dots and, again, lots of different glue. Large eye needles, both for using with yarn, using thread. We keep, I like the type of needle, sharps. I like to keep them in small sizes and I like to keep them in large sizes. So I like to keep a number of needles of different sizes on hand for applying, finishing off seams, closing up holes in turn inside out ornaments, just a lot of different things. So in addition to my quilting needles, in addition to my sewing machine needles, I like to keep a supply of different sized sharps. Okay, you can get darning needles, you can get upholstery needles. All of those are wonderful and good, but I like to have a variety of sizes of sharp needles that have different sized eyes so that different thicknesses of thread can go through them for attaching buttons, etc. I like to keep holiday buttons on hand. I like a collection of old buttons as well to keep on hand. And then sticks, chopsticks, tongue depressors, popsicle sticks, stirring sticks. You can never have, dowels. You can never have enough sticks of various thicknesses and sizes for the projects. You can use them to stabilize and stiffen areas in a crocheted doll, just like you can use armature wire. You can use sticks to put a chopstick into a jar of beans, and now you can use it as a way to hold up an applique, or not an applique, a felt star, a felt ornament, wonderful things like that. Last year I even purchased ornament hangers for the purpose of being able to display some of the ornaments. But that is what I keep in my craft supply. And of course I have fabric. Lots of different fabrics. Remnants from years past, new, bigger, larger cuts, but I have lots of fabric. With all of that, and with all the crafting, and the crafting my son does, he loves to give ornaments and different crafts to his friends. My daughter's been working on them. This year, my daughter's actually been doing 50 days until Christmas, or 50 days of holiday, how did you put it? 50 days of festive holiday fun. I think that's what it is. Yes, that's what it is. I'll put a link in the description of her Instagram channel so you can see the different things. Every day she's been posting a different thing that we do to be festive and fun during the holidays. It is something that we have decided is our tradition. It works for us. So whether you dive in big or small, whether you're just looking for the last minute gift or just a fun craft project with grandkids, so one of the things when I was a younger person that started to show up was they would have cookie parties. So a lot of younger people would get together for these cookie parties. Everybody would make one type of cookie, and they'd make it in a certain number of dozen. And then you'd get together and you would take equal amounts of each type of cookie so that you'd have a plate full of miscellaneous cookies for when people would come over, or just for your own movie watching, cookie snacking enjoyment. That's something we were doing in my 20s. One of the things that I think is really fun for younger audiences is to have crafting parties. There are so many wonderful inspirational videos, how-tos, tutorials online, through YouTube channels and through different websites, and just out there. The inspiration to craft, the inspiration to make things to share, it's out there. And sometimes the greatest enjoyment of the season is not on Christmas morning, not on the day we open the presents, but on the day we get together with friends and family before the big day, and we make some little crafting item, some little creative thing. The enjoyment, the love and sharing that goes on in those moments, that is the true joy that I think the holiday season brings to us, because it reminds us why we celebrate the holidays. It reminds us although it doesn't matter what holiday we celebrate, why we can all come together. Because it's that family and friends. It's that love for one another. That is what the holiday season is about. And that doesn't have to be relegated to just one day. And for us crafters, we know that we might have to start on January 2nd after taking a few days off after Christmas. We might have to start on January 2nd if we want to have all of our projects done before Christmas. But we know that it's in that process of making things that we love. And while we may be doing it year-round, while there may not be, oh, well, this is the first day that it's a holiday season for us, we know that for many, helping them understand that it doesn't matter what day you put up your Christmas tree, what your holiday is, whether everything is done in green and red, or whether it's done in blue and white, or whether it's a multitude of color that goes into your holiday season. What we want to pass on and share is that it is the making and the making with others, that crafting time. That's what gives us joy. That's what reminds us of the love. And if we can instill in, if we can inspire in others this love, this sharing of time, this community, then we have been able to receive the greatest gift of all. Passing this on from grandmother to granddaughter, from grandfather to grandson, from neighbor to neighbor, from friend, long acquaintance to brand new acquaintance. Being able to share this, being able to pass this on, being able to bask in the joy and the laughter that comes from the making process. That is for us the great reward. That is the great blessing. So I hope you enjoy these upcoming videos. They will be shorter than this one. And I hope you get some inspiration and maybe find some last minute projects that you can do. I've tried to collect a bunch of different items and types of things to share. Some of the videos might be longer than others, but it is my hope that you will have a happy, wonderful holiday season, no matter what you choose to do and how you choose to do it. So until I see you again, best wishes and happy holidays. We'll see you soon.